Done.
Okay, and just for any public, this meeting is recorded. I actually don't have my blurb that I read out here with me, but it is recorded for future use. People will be muted upon entry and will be allowed to speak during the comments. I think that's what I usually say, something like that. Brooke, what's the first thing on the agenda? I don't have it open right here. We're
Recreation
talking staffing.
staffing.
Okay. Michael and Kim, I'm not sure how much Charlie has said or what was relayed to you, but the Parks and Rec, at one point, we did have Brooke in the office during the day, just for a few hours, and then we kind of got away from that, and we do have her for meetings and minutes and such, and any correspondence we need, grant applications, anything like that. She's been paid for, God knows, I can't even remember how many years through our revolving fund, which I thought was strange that we're paying someone out of revolving. But we've been talking about at the Parks and Rec meetings that we're not just a commission, we oversee a department that has workers full-time, no different than water and sewer. I mean, a lot less people, but we would like to look into getting an office person. Doesn't have to be full-time, half-time, so many days in the office, just to answer calls, especially in a busy season that people are calling about summer programs or this or that or the other thing. And poor Charlie, who like Kim is there at the crack of dawn and probably stays till dark. He's returning phone calls and doing everything. So we would like to look into having a real during the day person, an admin, and paid by the town, not through our revolving fund. And I really don't even know how it came to be that the revolving fund was paying Brooke.
So Gina, let me ask you a question. So it's paid.
Sure.
So right now, Brooke does, fair amount of work and it's all paid out of revolving.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Like, yeah, most of the money comes out of the fees we charge to Little League, basketball, anyone using our facilities. And that pays for our, remember, we are so underpaid, we're so under budgeted. It's craziness. We charge everyone for fertilizer, anything that we have to charge to the kids who use the fields. So right now, if the town has any money available to help us out and help Brooke, it would be, this is the time you got to do it, because we can't, for a town our size, not to have any recreational facilities and having no money budgeted towards it it's a shame. It's an embarrassment. A town our size doesn't have anything.
Yeah,
Right.
I don't disagree.
Right.
I don't
And plus,
disagree at all.
as far as being paid from the revolving account, like Tommy said, that revolving account is mostly user fees, which started as to help with fertilizer, the upkeep of the fields. I personally don't think that what Little League is paying or Badgers football or any of the other groups should really be going to pay an employee for the town to do meetings and minutes and correspondence.
So let me ask this question. Is that the same revolving fund that takes in, the summer program fees?
I believe it is. Jimmy, do you guys know for sure?
It is. Yes, it is.
It is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So so obviously last summer, I know based on what I think Tony told me, last summer, the fees, we basically didn't have a summer program, so we didn't get any of those fees. But I guess my question would be, if anybody knows, and I can find this out, but what percentage of those of the typical revenues into the revolving fund, what percentage of that is just the summer program? Any idea?
Summer program barely even breaks even. You know, we don't charge a lot to the kids. Most of the kids, you know, using the program. It's another avenue for babysitting a little bit, you know, to get their kids somewhere to go. But no, I think we're just breaking even. If I'm using the word breaking even, I bet we're not even breaking even.
So it just breaks even, but even out of that total, so would you say that more money comes in just from the Little League and the Badgers and all the, you know, nickel and dimes that we charge?
I would
Yes.
say so, definitely.
Than it would for the summer program. All right.
Right.
All right. Well, that's good for me to kind of paint a frame
I
of
have a
reference.
question.
Sure.
I know you appointed someone head of, not the highway department, but you have a public works director now. Is that, are we heading in that direction? Would it,
We appointed Azu as the public works director. So, so right now that includes, a highway, water, sewer, transfer station. And one of the discussions, you know, and it's probably certainly not for today, but one of the discussions that we should have is how best can we manage, you know, all of our fields and infrastructure, you know, athletic and rec infrastructure. And does it make sense to, you know, look at you know, kind of rebalancing what a DPW could do for Parks and Rec, or what a Parks and Rec could do for DPW, just to make sure. I want to make sure that, you know, Parks and Rec isn't like, you know, doesn't continue to be like the poor stepchild of Bridgewater. And because that's kind of the way it's appeared to me over the last number of years. And we've got too many kids. Just my take. I mean, I think we've got too many kids involved in programs, a variety of programs. And we've got a lot of new kids that are moving into the community. And you know, I want to make sure that we're not, you know, presenting, you know, just sort of a hodgepodge, you know, to the new kids that are moving in. I want to make sure that we're doing, you know, being as efficient and resourceful and offering as many quality fields or programs as we possibly can. So the reason I say this is a future discussion, because I think we want to make sure that, you know, programmatically, you guys, you know, prioritize what should be done by Parks and Rec, and then things that really shouldn't be done by Parks and Rec. I guess is sort of the long-term objective. So
Would Parks and Rec go under the DPW or just stay separate? And
I don't think you want, well,
No.
let's just say I haven't really thought about it. I don't think
I
you
didn't know
want,
if that's what you were getting towards.
no, you don't want a Parks and Rec as a component of a
Right.
DPW, because the focus in Parks and Rec is social, right? It's a
Mhm. Right.
it's a social service. It's a
Mhm.
community service.
Right.
DPW, in my mind, is just taking care of all of our infrastructure. So
Mike, if I'm hearing you correctly, and I agree, yeah, that DPW will take care of the fields, and we run the programs, we run the leagues, that's what we'll take care of. For years, forever, we've been taking care of the fields and trying to run programs, and it's been, and the town keeps cutting. So what happens? Programs start losing, and we're just trying to survive and cut fields, and it gets to that point. So I agree, whatever you can do to throw money into, so we can do programs and have a director running programs instead of cutting, sitting on a lawnmower cutting grass. I think that's a huge benefit.
I think Tom, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly kind of what's in my mind, with a caveat. And I've seen this in many places and it hasn't worked. I don't want you know, I don't want an underfunded DPW to be taking over an underfunded, you know, facilities component to Parks and Rec, because right now, you know, you have great fields. There's somebody there that really cares about the quality of fields and making sure that everything works. So I don't want to have, you know, a kid on a lawnmower replacing, you know, the care that goes into those fields. So that's sort of a long way of saying, I want to make sure we do it right. I don't want to just,
Yeah.
you know, pull a trigger and say, you know, okay, now this, you know, summer kid is going to take care of your fields, because that's not the,
My-
obviously you can hire summer staff to help, but you need somebody who really knows what they're doing to maintain quality fields.
The reason I mentioned is I don't see someone giving us an administrator for 40 hours to sit answering the phone and getting recreation things. So whatever you come up with, the best you come up with, it'd be a good idea if maybe the phone calls go through that department, and maybe they just give a message for the person that's running, you know, so that we do
I
have
see.
full-time administration. And I don't mean they do anything about it. If it's important, they get it with the person running the recreation fields. And, you know, and then if someone comes in for a few hours or whatever you come up with, they would get the messages in the afternoon, and then everything taken care of. We'd have some continuity. You
So
know,
I see what you mean, Jim. Just so there's like a human, you know, you've got a point of contact, a human point of contact, basically.
So if I'm hearing right, eventually the maintenance of and upkeep of the fields will be under the DPW, and Parks and Rec would just be running programs?
That's what's, I don't want to say that that's the way it's going to be, because, you know, obviously we're at the initial, we've got enough to do just to get, you know, sort of those 4 traditional DPW departments functioning on all cylinders. But I think what's going through my mind is kind of what you just said, Gina. You know, let's
which one of
allocate.
Charlie's 4 jobs are we filling? Are we filling the person that takes care of the fields, the one that overlooks the golf course, the one that does construction work? Or, while we're
believe
on it,
me.
I'd like to thank you for your backing on the pickleball courts. The start has been very good up there, and hopefully will continue.
It's been a long time
But-
coming.
But like Charlie morphed into that because we got rid of the pro and saved $60,000 a year. And we got rid of the guy taking care of the books. And, you know, we're not gonna get one of those. I know we're not, you know, it's, some people you can't replace, but, well, not with one person anyway. So
Yeah.
that's kind of why I'm interested in this meeting. Are we replacing the recreation guy that takes care of the fields?
So,
Knows everything about grass and all that stuff, and so we'll have to do something else at the golf course, part-time or whatever, to take care of the other part of it, or what part are we filling?
So that's, thank God, Charlie was good enough to give us a lot of warning.
Yep.
Because I agree with you. I've dreaded this day. I thought I would be long gone before Charlie ever left. And I still may be long gone before Charlie ever leaves, but
Hopefully not.
but I don't want to have to face the fallout. That's the real problem.
Yeah,
I think we should bring someone on, Mike. Start having someone train, and I don't know if Charlie's retiring this year or next year, but
Next year, Tom.
next
next
year.
fiscal year, which could be after July.
Ay.
I thought
I
did he
think-
say next spring?
yeah, I think he's looking at next spring.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to talk out of turn, but I think that's what he's looking at.
Yeah,
Okay, I was talking to someone today and mentioning, you know, how we're having this meeting. And I mentioned that Charlie was going to be, you know, I didn't say when, but I said, when he retires, we could be in trouble. And they said, well, doesn't he have somebody under him that can move up? I said, no, there's nobody under him.
That's
There's
it. I
like
mean,
one
that's,
and a half people and that's it.
Charlie is it. Charlie
Yep.
is our rec program, I know, and it's,
Yeah.
you know, he loves what he does for the most part. He probably doesn't love dealing with us, but, you know, otherwise he loves what he does. And so he's, you know, he just does it all. So that is a problem. We've got a lot more work to do between now and then to try to make sure that we've got a good plan in place and things don't get dropped. So a lot of
Yep.
that, quite honestly, is getting, you know, meeting with Charlie and and I've told him this, you know, just we need to start setting up regular meetings, and just over the weeks to come, just sort of have a brain dump, because so much of what he does is in his head and not written down.
Mhm.
So we will do that. And I'll be back talking with this group numerous times, you know, as we plot this out. But I guess the best I can say is all the things that, you know, all three of you, Gina and Jim and Tom have talked about are things that, you know, been floating around our collective heads here. And
Okay.
we just have to come up with a plan to make sure that we don't drop, you know, either any of the four jobs that Charlie does. So I don't know how we're going to get there just yet, but we know we have to. So
Let's do it jointly too. Let's do it together. So, you know, if you need to make decisions and let us be involved on the person. And I know you will, but it's just for that rec position, it's just so much to it. It's amazing, you know, how much Charlie does. And it's, you know,
Yeah.
one person may not be enough.
No,
Mhm.
and it, you know, quite honestly, I know it's not, you know, but it is, you know, as much as I dread seeing Charlie leave, you know, it does force us to have a conversation about how, you know, a real rec program and a real rec department, you know, should be shaped, and it can't be just one guy.
Do you have personnel that could get the budgets of the surrounding towns or towns that size or anything like that?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we could have an idea, because I mean, it seems real bad, but might as well see it in black and white,
Yep.
you know? Yeah.
No,
And then
that's easy
Even
enough.
if it's what percentage of the budget, because I think it was like 10 cents on 100 or something at the time, last time we looked, so,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, I know Gina probably could mow the fields.
I could,
Yeah.
I could.
So fertilizers, I can handle fertilizing. Jim can run the golf course.
And I'm good at
Yeah.
pulling up, like killing poison ivy and pulling up invasive plants. I've been doing that at Styles and Hart.
Excellent. So you're the one that's been doing that at Styles and Hart. Thank you.
Yep. Monica Bentley. Every once in a while, like once a week, I get a message from her. We're going out. Let's go.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, let me know next time and I'll come.
Okay,
Gina?
sounds, Yes.
Ms. Gusconi, Mr. Campbell's hand is up.
I think it's been up.
No, I said my piece, thank you,
Okay.
unless we're moving to the next thing.
Okay, no, your hand is still up though, Jimmy.
I didn't, I thought she puts it down. I put
I
it down
do. I
myself.
will.
Oh, okay, it's down.
Thank you.
Um,
See, I went
Okay,
to
so that-
parochial school, the nuns hit you in the hand with the ruler. you
yeah,
know.
they knock your hand down with the
There you
ruler.
go.
For the staffing for the future is good, what we've talked about and keeping us in the loop. But in the meantime, how about like, what are your thoughts on getting a person in the office for even, you know, half-time, not up to benefit time? Just to help out and do things in there.
So let's, you know, so I think Kim and I both heard you. So why don't you let us, you know, see if we can come up with a decent plan, because I do think it's important that, you know, you have a number to call, a person to talk to. So Kim and I can come up with a plan on that one.
Great.
And
Not
try to
paid by
formulate something.
revolving.
No, and well, I agree. You know, that the revolving fund should pay for, you know, certain expenses and not, you know, not just routine day-to-day administrative stuff.
And I might be wrong, but I think Charlie's helper Ray is pay out of revolving as well.
Right.
Is he? Kim, do you know?
Yes.
Yeah, which
Okay.
I think I read once before, isn't really like,
I don't think it's
They're
kosher
supposed
that
to
you
do
can
it.
pay use revolving funds for salaries,
I
but
think our total budget is $78,000. The last time I looked, I don't look anymore because,
it's
Don't look.
depressing.
Huh?
I've
well,
been
I think it's
through-
less money than Charlie makes.
I've been cleaning through papers at home and I came across some rec budgets from way back and we probably got more money then than we get now. I'll have
We
to pull
did.
them out and send them to you.
Oh, I have no doubt. I have no
Yeah.
doubt. Yeah.
Mhm.
So let Kim and I look at that and we'll talk, we'll bring this up at our weekly meeting with Tony. Just on exactly what revolving funds are paying for, what they should pay for, what they shouldn't pay for, because that, and it's a
Mhm.
timely discussion because it all involves, quite frankly, it should come to a head now as we're trying to sort of, if and when we try to reallocate some of the work that Charlie does.
Right.
Let's try, I want to do it better and I want to make sure that, we've got a plan to get there. So just Gina, as a suggestion and,
Mhm.
maybe pass it along to Mike as well, but I would say it would not be inappropriate, just to have sort of a standing item on your agenda, each time you meet, just, maybe Parks and Rec restructuring, however you want to phrase it, just so, we can have this conversation, a lot between now and next spring.
Mhm.
And it gives us a chance to, present some ideas to you, on how we think, we can restructure it the best. But that's just my suggestion, to sort of create a
Okay.
standing item.
That's a good idea. Brooke, if we forget, will you make sure it's on?
Yes, and it was just staffing. Is that what you want?
Staffing
I
and
think-
reconstruction?
I think general Parks and Rec restructuring, so that
Restructuring.
encompasses, that encompasses the whole discussion,
Okay,
I think adequately. So I think you'll be good on open meeting and all of that.
Mhm. Okay, good, thank you. The next thing I believe is for the code, the town code, which I think it was put on this agenda to talk more about usage of the field, as a result of this protest rally festival, whatever we want to call it. But
So, I'm sorry, Gina, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say part of the code thing too, and I guess it fits under that because we weren't specific, but it kind of goes into what we're talking about including rec. And to be honest, I wasn't up on town codes, like advisory ministerial, but seeing as I got involved in changing the CPC code, I was looking up one day and it was about the time of this other thing we're going to talk about. But I was looking and Parks and Rec is our advisory commissioned, which I figured it was, but I was reading more into it from the code document. And it said that the Parks and Rec Commission, and I might be wording it wrong, but basically Park and Rec's commission advises the town manager via the superintendent. I don't think that happens anymore. We hear about things sometimes after the fact or as they're being done, not before. Park and Rec at one time, and the three of us that are on this call today, this meeting, probably hit close to 125 years of service to the commission.
Wow.
Probably just about, because I started 1980 and Tommy and Jimmy started shortly after me. So we're looking at close to well over 100 years. But
Wow.
at one time, And I know the whole town was structured different, but back then it was plain recreation, now Parks and Rec. When it was recreation, we had a say in something. Now it seems, in my opinion, I think the others, not to speak for them, but I get the feeling that we all feel that. Like we're not advising, we're being advised of what's happening. And I think I remember back when the charter first went into effect that the previous town manager came to our meeting and basically said, however he worded it, but we're like out of the picture. Everything goes through him. So I would like to see that looked at again. At some point, some way, I don't know if Tommy or I think we lost Tommy.
Yeah, I don't know when exactly.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
Gina, let me,
Maybe-
oh, Jim, sorry.
No, I'm all set. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, let me just give you a little bit of background on that. And I quite
Mhm.
honestly was, when I came in and, you know, certainly later when we did the administrative code was, or at least the provisions I think you're talking about. Well, actually, it was the general ordinances. We took the general bylaws that existed and we kind of corrected them. You know, obviously there was no board of selectmen,
Mhm.
no town meeting and so forth. So we made wording changes. We kind of rearranged things so that it made sense a little more. And then we corrected, you know, things that were just, you know, no longer lawful. And very similar to what we're trying to do now with zoning. Zoning's a little more visible and people are more interested in zoning than they usually are in the general bylaws. So what we got were the general ordinances, and quite honestly, I didn't even know that there was a provision, whatever that section 1 something or other was about, you know, gatherings and you know, having to get,
157.
was it 157? So having to get the police chief's approval for any gathering, or I can't remember the exact wording. So so that's, to my knowledge, I don't know that ever happened. It probably happened, you know, 50, 60 years ago, whenever the original version was adopted, but quite honestly, I hadn't heard of that. So you know, the town attorney has definitely said that, you know, that's effectively what's the right word? You know, sort of, it's a vague and very vague article or provision, and probably wouldn't pass constitutional muster if somebody wanted to challenge it in court. So so that we know, you know, and the chief and Kim and I and town attorney have had some discussions about you know, having to make some changes, certainly to that. And it sort of begged the broader question about, you know, who actually permits the use of Legion Field. And I think Legion Field, or any Parks and Rec property for that matter. And I don't know that I've ever been involved in any permitting process for Legion Field. I mean, that's, you know, my philosophy was always, if you know, if it's not broke, then don't try to fix it. So this recent, you know, thing with this freedom rally, obviously brought up you know, fairly enough, brought up a lot of questions about, you know, how we go about permitting the use of properties. So I think that sort of also begs a broader discussion. You know, Kim has collected a number of other towns, you know, processes for permitting the use of town parks. And so we'll, you know, collect those and probably share those with you guys, because I think I guess I don't want to be, the process should be a joint process, right? It should involve not just Parks and Rec, but it should, fair enough, it should involve the police and fire chiefs as sort of people that check off their, have some sort of check off process as we do for other licenses and permits. And then should involve my office to some extent. So I don't think the way it's written right now is correct. There is sort of a process that Parks and Rec has used over the years. And as I say, my philosophy, we had bigger problems than permitting the use of Legion Field. And I didn't, when I came along. And so I just figured, okay, that's not broke. So I'm not interested in trying to fix it. Something that's not broke. So now there are pieces of it that do appear to be broken. And again, that's probably another issue, ongoing discussion that we should have on a regular basis, is just get to the point where we've got a better, more inclusive permitting process, because I've got, under the charter, I've got a lot of authority and responsibility, but I also have been very clear that I don't want to, take, I'm certainly not a control freak, and I don't think that's right for Bridgewater. I think, we've got a Parks and Recreation Commission that should play some role in how the town's parks and rec facilities are used. So that's, I think, a broader discussion to have. There's no, and unfortunately, there's no clarity now the way we do it or don't do it. So my objective is, whatever process we come up with, I want to make sure, based on the stuff that we've gone through recently, I want to make sure that it's clear for anybody that wants to come and use a park. And it can be whatever it is. I just want to make sure that it's clear and that it passes muster with you folks.
Mhm. No, I think that, and Jimmy, go ahead.
I just, what happened, I think was fine. I'd be more involved. We're recreational. So if you want to lease the field out to somebody to have a birthday party or something recreational or a softball game, fine. If it comes to people let someone meet in the center of town and they okay and everything, it gets too big and the police want to move it, I think it's fine for them to move it anywhere they want to move it for public safety. It'd just be nice if there was a policy. We wouldn't want them to move it down there if there was a little league game or something else going on. So it'd be, like you say, it's clear if there was a checklist, what you would do if this situation, if they were using one place and they were going to move the other, maybe the college would help out or something or whatever. But anyway, as long as there's a policy in place so that all of a sudden there's a big thing going on, no one knows how it got there or whatever like that. That's all.
Mhm.
I buy on to make that decision because we're talking about the safety of town, the people in the town of Bridgewater. So they can move it anywhere they want as far as I'm concerned, as long as, it makes some common sense.
Mhm.
And that's, just again, it sort of highlights one of the things that is great about Charlie. It's when that all transpired, the police department, Carl McDermott and the chief, I think both reached out to Charlie just to make sure that there was nothing scheduled for that field on that particular day before they agreed to that. So the sort of, to Jim's point, there wasn't any written policy, but the relationships, the personal relationships in town that Charlie has developed so that, he can pick up the phone and talk to just about anybody. Certainly helps, but it's not something that you can show people on a piece of paper and say, here's the process.
Mhm.
So that's
And
why.
it's ending.
And it's ending. Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. I agree as Jimmy said, especially where it was public safety. when I started about the code, about Parks and Rec advising the town manager, I wasn't talking specifically this incident. This event wasn't even in my mind. That I was just talking like in general. I mean, we don't need to be involved in day to day, but just to keep us involved. And Charlie's good. Charlie's more than good. Charlie's more than great. And he tries to let us know what's going on. The event we're talking about, I was in touch with Charlie on it. And I actually spoke to, nope, I thought I shut you guys off for a second. I spoke to the chief too, and Charlie, because I had questions, and poor Charlie was going 10 different directions at least on it. I spoke to the chief and got some answers, and Charlie asked me to send out to the rest of the commission, which I did, which also gets down back to if we had a staff person, that person could have been updating the committee. So we dealt with it fine. I think that, and Becky can elaborate more on this. I think it was just a conflict in two separate, like what was on the Park and Recs page and what was on the town page itself. They were in conflict. So if that could just be looked at to make them one and the same, whatever's decided for it.
I think, no, I think Gina, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, there, and this is not the only place where there are conflicts, you know, in certainly the admin code. We tried pretty hard to make sure it conformed to the, you know, everything that was in the charter. And, you know, the next step, sort of the admin code needs to inform, you know, department practices. And where there are conflicts, we need to resolve those conflicts. So but there are many areas, and as I've often said, in fact, I told one of our new counselor the other day, you know, coming from the business world, where you've got, you know, and data-driven decisions, and you make decisions, and you enforce, you implement decisions, and it's you know, one day, you know, you make the decision, next day you implement the decision, and then the third day you analyze the decision, and it's, you know, sort of a continuous process. I mean, take that in the business world and unfortunately stretch it out exponentially in the government sector, and you've got what takes years and has to involve, you know, the consent or the buy-in from, you know, 1,000 people instead of just one person. And so I think what you're seeing now is, we know we've got a lot of things to fix. Quite frankly, we've got a, you know, the town code has got provisions that haven't even been written yet, that we thought we'd get to 3 years ago. So we know we have a lot of things to fix, and the reason I brought up that rally was that because that sort of highlighted areas that we didn't even know we had issues. We didn't even know we had to fix.
Yeah.
So, so your point's very well taken. And so, you know, certainly I think ongoing, you know, let's work together, obviously, on how we're going to restructure Parks and Rec to make sure that we get all the stuff done right. And then two, let's make sure we have a ongoing discussion about how we can, you know, better involve, you know, the right parties in the decision-making process, or a permitting, a permitting process for the use of the parks. I'm all for that. You're the experts on Parks and Rec. I'm not the expert on Parks and Rec. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Well said.
Yeah, I think. Anything else, Becky? Did you have anything to add for the code?
Just really quickly, first of all, I wanted to particularly thank Brooke for alerting me to this meeting and that the town code was going to be discussed, because I wouldn't have known about it. So I appreciate that, and I thank you, Brooke. I thank you all for including me in the discussion. I think that in listening to you and kind of typing up some notes here, that what happened, I've been using the word kerfluffle for what happened, so as not to cast aspersions on anybody. So the kerfluffle that occurred, I think it was a good thing in the respect that it precipitated thinking about the fact that there were holes in the policy and there were things that are unclear to us, the townspeople. So who does have the authority in the beginning? And I was listening to you, Gina, and I understand that before, when we were under the selectmen, the government body was different and the hierarchy was different and how the flow went was different. And if Parks and Rec had more authority then, it's kind of hard to swallow that and say, oh, so now, before we got to tell them what to do, now we're being told what to do. So that's really hard to swallow. Change is hard. But if that's the way that it is, then it just needs to be sort of laid out. And also, there seems to be, I'm not even the beginning of a lawyer, but some of the terminology that's been used is that there seems to be a difference between a demonstration and protest and a celebration. And I think during the kerfluffle, the freedom people, I think we're telling two different stories. I think in some places they were saying this was a demonstration, and in other places they were saying it was a celebration. So if y'all thought it was a demonstration, then I think in terms of freedom of speech, there's less movement for you. So that needs to be stated so that you can say to the public, well, look, this was this and that was that. And I think everybody handled it in the best way that they could, certainly in an emergency situation, as Jim was saying, and Gina, you acknowledged later, you want to protect the safety of the town. And so that needed to happen that day. That all just needs to be out there for the public to see, but also there needs to be a policy there so that it states that in the case of town security, we need to do this. So if it's all written out somewhere, and I'm the first one to say it is not easy to organize that and to get that into a document and to have it all out there clearly, it's really, really hard to do that. So I'm not saying I'm going to get off this meeting and tell everybody that's going to all be in the code tomorrow. It's going to be all set.
That's because you're
Don't
going to
worry
write
about
it, Becky.
Sorry?
You're going to write it.
So I know that, and you can't anticipate what's going to happen. After it happens, you address it. And that's what y'all are talking about. So that's what's really important here.
Mhm.
So I think I just wanted to, let you know that those of us that are level-headed understand what took place, understand there was stuff going on in the background that needed to be managed. The other thing is, it seems to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a distinction between some of the parks that are under Parks and Rec. And for example, the Stanley Ironworks Parkland, where we're holding our event. So that's not under Parks and Rec, is that true?
So
No.
it's interesting, you bring up a really good point. I had a conversation with the state today about some grant funding for Styles and Hart.
Good.
And the state draws a very strict distinction between conservation properties, which are managed by local conservation commissions, in theory, and Parks and Rec properties, which fall under the purview of the Parks and Rec Commission. So one of the things, again, this is something that makes me a little nervous about what we call our parks. Most of them are conservation properties. So they really fall under the purview of the Conservation Commission. And most of them, I believe, fall under the purview of the Conservation Commission and not the Parks and Rec. And for state funding, for state grant funding, that's important. What makes me nervous is that I am not sure that all of our what we think are conservation properties, we call them parks, but our conservation properties, I'm not sure that all of them actually have the appropriate conservation restrictions placed on them. So that's on my list. But at this point, Styles and Hart is sort of the priority because we're about to seek, a huge chunk of money from the state to make a lot of improvements at Styles and Hart. And I need to be very clear that there is, well, whatever it is, I need to be very clear about it. And if there's nothing, then we have to move forward pretty quickly to make sure that we've got the appropriate restrictions on it. Either way, I believe that one would be Conservation Commission property. But either way, if it's already Parks and Rec, that's fine, but we just have to sort of solidify that and make sure that the appropriate restrictions are filed with the Registry of Deeds.
Michael, while you're talking about Styles and Hart, I think it's more of a CPC question, but there's an old brick wall in there. There's two brick walls from the entrance closer to the, well, they both come up by the river, closer to McDonald's. I think it's not part of the original brickyard. I think it's part of the fairgrounds. I'm not positive. I can double check that. That's something that, you know, if an application could be put in to look into it, I think there would have to be a preservationist mason. There's one up in Maine. I was just looking it up one day with nothing to do. I just walked it, so it was fresh in my brain. But if we could, you know, the town could look at that and possibly put in a CPC application because it's part of the history there, and to just see it collapse would be a shame.
So the CPC, you're going to see a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot. You're going to see, definitely see an application for funding for improvements to Styles and Hart. And so I think that's, you know, if you remind me when I'm in the process of doing the application, I'll put that in, Gina, because it would be good to, you know, highlight that, you know, the interpretive signage that we could do there just to show the history of that area would be really perfect. So if I forget it, just remind me when I'm doing that application.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just have one quick thing. I want to let you go so you can go eat. A lot of times when we bought the land, it said for recreation or conservation. So does that muddle things?
Honestly, I really wouldn't want to say until I really get Jason to take a closer look.
Yeah.
But I did, as I say, it becomes important because land grants are available for conservation properties. Park grants are only available for Parks and Rec properties. So
Gotcha.
yeah, and I didn't know that until.
No, I'm just saying, I just remember like when they bought where the police station is, they said for Parks and Recreation. When people donate it to you, I think a lot of times they say for Parks and Recreation. It's just funny that little wording at the beginning of the grant that they give it to you would make such an impact on that. Now, when they give it to you, I guess you could choose which one you're using it for. You just would have to prove it to get the grant that you're using. Yeah, but wow.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's good. Thank you for the clarification, because I just took it when they changed the name was changed from Recreation to Parks and Rec, that all the 7 parklands now came under us. So it's good to know there is a separation. They should be conservation.
And again, this is one of those areas
Sorry
where,
for the train.
no, it's all right. I love that noise, actually. No, it's just good. You know, it's just one of those things that we have to figure out. And it's one of those things that, you know, I'm sure for 100 years or some period of time, people in Bridgewater just referred to Styles and Hart as park. Carver's Pond is a park. Titicate's a park. You know, all of these different areas are parks. Yet we may not be, you know, that just naming them a park doesn't make them a park. You know, we need to go back and make sure that, you know, we need to know how they were purchased, you know, what funding was used to purchase them. That might inform how we need to place a restriction on them. And so that's, you know, as I say, that's on our list, but it does make a difference now because it affects, you know, what pot of money that we might have available to us.
And not only.
Our biggest, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, not only pot of money, but also clarifying again for the townspeople, when people were saying to me, well, so-and-so went over to Legion Field and they didn't have to do blah, blah, blah. And then Kim is explaining to me, well, you're going to the Stanley Iron Works. It's not, she's trying to explain to me the difference.
Yep.
But they see the word park and they think, so
All the
that's the only,
same.
yes,
Yeah.
that
Well-
was my point. Yeah.
Our biggest recreational thing, the golf course, was bought for conservation, so they wouldn't build 250 houses in there. So like I said, that's the funny part is you buy it for one thing, or it depends on how you bought it. If you bought it, wrote in there that you're buying it for conservation, then you put a park on it. It really, that's
You're
why,
really-
that's
so
why
you're
you get lawyers, I
confusing.
guess.
Yeah, right.
That's funny.
That's why we're here. But that's,
Yeah.
the golf course is an excellent example, because I think you're right. That's a conservation property, right? But
Yeah, well, it
you would-
was.
You would equate Legion Field and the golf course as being parks. But really, if we wanted to purchase more property to, add 9 more holes, for example, that would be a conservation purchase, not a park purchase, So
That's really funny, yeah.
the good
because-
news is that the largest pot of money and the place where we will look to fill out the grant application is actually the Federal Land and Water Grant Program. And that now the state, through that program, used to have $1 million to give away. Now they've got, I think, almost $7 million this year to give away. So they'll be looking for people to give money to. So we want to be at the right place at the right time. Fortunately, that one doesn't draw that same distinction between conservation property and parks
Yeah.
property. So
Mhm.
that part's good.
Very informative.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
I have a 5 o'clock call that.
Yeah, I'm gonna
should-
make a
the-
motion to adjourn.
Yeah, but I just have one suggestion back
The
to
motion
the,
on the floor. I'm only kidding. We don't run them that
That's-
strictly.
back, we'll be right back to that.
Yeah.
Back to the protest rally festival, whichever.
The kerfluffle, it's a kerfluffle.
Kerfuffle. I had to
You
ask
must
Brooke
watch
what,
Judge
I had to
Judy.
ask
She's
Brooke
the
in
one
a
that
minute.
uses that word.
yeah, from last month, like, what is this word? She said, that's the word they used. When it's decided, like, to clarify everything and standardize the way it's in conflict in 2 spots. One of the things that when I talked to the chief, he wasn't aware that recreation had a permitting process, because he had said to me, if there's a permitting process, it would have been easier. And in talking to him, and as Becky said, they were given, even the police were given, is it a festival? Is it a protest? Is it a rally? The same people were given different information. So he had said to me, if he knew that there's a permitting process for the recreation field, he would have had them, advised to fill one out. And I said, but if they were given different information, and if you can't stop because of freedom of speech, what would be the purpose of it? And he brought up a good point. If somebody has to put it in writing on an application, they're more apt to say exactly what it is. So if something like that, even though it's going to be allowed anyways, because it's freedom of speech, but just have them fill out something. Just my
Yeah.
last 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Okay, Jim, now
I
we'll
think
take
a
your motion.
celebration's a demonstration anyway. You're demonstrating how happy you are, right?
Right.
Okay,
And you have the right freedom of speech to say how happy you are.
there you go.
Okay,
Just to clarify, Juneteenth is not a demonstration, it's a celebration.
Which is a
okay.
demonstration of how happy you are.
We're not using the word demonstration. Don't get
I
us
know
in
you're
trouble,
not. You
Jim.
try to avoid it. I'm not getting my lawyer up there.
Okay, well, I want to thank on behalf of Jim and I, because we don't know what happened to Tommy. Thank all of you for the meeting, and for hearing us out, and we look forward to working with you for resolutions, and we don't look forward to working without Charlie.
Yeah, I agree. You'll be seeing my face a lot more, and I'm sure you'll be seeing Kim's face a lot more at your meetings. So we'll have a lot of discussion to do.
Thanks again, Mike. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Okay, and
Thank you,
I
everybody.
actually, I interrupted what I was sending you an email anyways today, Michael, a CPC, and I said, oh, let me go get ready for the rec call. So you'll be getting an email from me too.
Excellent. All right.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
care.
Have a nice night. Bye-bye.
Good
Thanks.
evening.
A motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Oh,
adjourn.
Second, all in favor, seeing as there's only two of us, we're not legal anyways right now.
Well, no, but it just closes
Yeah.
it out.
Okay.
Okay,
You
have
thank
to-
you.
You have to take the names, right? Roll call?
Yep,
Yep.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Ms. Gusconi.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Have a good evening.
okay,
You too.
okay,
Thanks.
thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Yep, bye-bye.